Welcome to the Vision Seed Podcast, where we gather in the dark beneath the soil within the luminous void from which all creation blooms. Without our sense of sight, we explore the alchemy of the creative process through intimate conversations with artists and visionaries. Together, we embrace the mystery and infinite potential of the unknown. This is a space to honor the whisper of inspiration and the dance within the blackness that births creative magic. Let's journey into the In this episode, I'm joined by Dr. Ori Howard. Ori is a new naturopathic trans doctor that roots their work in love. Ori's life work is to be an active tender in personal, environmental, social, and global relationships. They are particularly focused on the intersection between these fields and what it means to build home within them. A deep love for the ecology that we are all a part of, consciousness as medicine, and the interrelationality of being are the topics that we explore in this episode. I'll see you there. Ori and I are sitting in the dark in our house, in our roommate's closet. We're in the closet and passing back and forth a hot water bottle because we are really enjoying the warmth of that. Right now, I've really fallen in love and taken to carrying around a hot water bottle in my pants. So, and just really wintering hard here in Portland. So, Ori, the way that I structure the podcast and move through is ascending up the chakra system. But before we do that, we start with the third eye, with the Agya, and when we're here in the third eye center, it's very simple. And we start our podcast by just opening inner vision to the body. And I would love to ask you, as you sit here in the dark, where the area of most sensation in your body is right now in this moment. Where is the area of most sensation? What is the color, texture, and form of the area of most sensation in your body as we sit?
Oh, I love that question. My thoracic spine, it's like the muscles, all the intricate muscles around my T4 to 6, they just slowly contracted while we were sitting, and it was so nice to give myself a little permission to put the hot water bottle on my back instead of just like struggle through it. So it's changed in color and texture a lot in the last 5 minutes with a hot water bottle, but right now it feels purple.
Okay, we're going to begin in the root. And this is a place I'm really excited to be with you, because a lot of our chats that inspired us to come here and sit down to podcast together were having to do with the biomorphic nature of plants and the way that their structure determines their function and the beautiful fluidity between structure and function that exists in the plant world. And roots were a part of that conversation. Would you be willing to point to and trace over the roots of your creative experience? And so just sharing a little bit about your background, help us get oriented about you as a creative mind and as a being on this planet right now. What is the form of Ori right now?
So many beautiful, complex questions.
I'm really rattling them off. Hopefully
so
for a
good.
deep exploration. Yeah.
I think the first thing that came to mind of like the root, like the first like deep memory I have of kind of a spark of just like awe of the world. It just shoots me back to that moment of being in my grandparents' backyard and just lying in the grass as a kid, and for the first time really seeing grass and seeing it in all of its beauty and noticing each individual being, because each leaf is its own presence and its own root system, and they all sit together and they're all taking in light and reflecting it back out, and it just shook me and brought me this deep sense of peace and inspiration at the same time. And I feel the many times I find myself in a similar environment where I'm surrounded by grass or grains and the sun's hitting them and the sun's hitting me, and I just get to admire the way that they are and their stillness and their radiance. I literally take in the sun's radiance and like shine it back out. Yeah, that's where I feel the most creative sometimes, just in observing how beautiful things are around me.
I love to explore the idea that the way of seeing could in itself be creative. Like before we even jump into action, before we even pick up a pen or a brush or an instrument, that our very perspective is already enough. And I think that there's something really deep and poignant about what you're saying there. Because it's also reminding me about, it's calling me back to being on Vipassana, to being on silent retreat, and not being allowed to create, like that being one of the rules. And when you're not allowed to pick up a pen or a brush, or you're not allowed to make those expressive gestures, like, what is creativity then? What is creativity when it's just you and your awareness and your perception of what you're beholding? And yeah, I really love where that's going.
I feel like that's like a piece of what we talked about the other day too, of like how there's this incredible creation and creativity of just existing as a person, like each organ creating its own systems and creating so much just internally, observing, you're taking in the world, but there's so much creation inside your eyes and in your brain that's going on. You truly are art and creation, just like looking and existing.
This is already such a beautiful beginning. There's such a beautiful seed to a conversation. But I really want to move slowly and just highlight something so beautiful and special, which is that to be in creation and to be in creativity, we need not do anything other than simply shift our awareness to the fact that we are constantly being created and that we are constantly under the process of creation. And that's on a physiological level. And I think that you could also zoom that out, and it could be on a spiritual or metaphysical level, that we are always being made and we are always making one another. And that we're doing that through the root connection that we have to one another, as those like individual blades of grass that seem distinct but are really connected below the surface. It's really sweet.
I love that.
So can you tell me a little bit about maybe just the nuts and bolts of your, like, when you do turn towards creating physically with your hands, what do you like to create?
I think I like to create balance. I love to do ceramics, like that's my favorite form, and I love to throw on the wheel. That's been like my main art form for a while. Finding a balance within the matter and the substance that's new is always just really special. And then I feel like the other art I really love to do is writing and drawing. I love doing like live drawing. I feel like I usually draw plants and people just as I see them. I think in that way the balance is like trying to find a balance, what my perception is and what they are, and like having that medium be on the paper. And then with writing, I feel like I'm also looking for balance and creating balance with holding space for my strongest, deepest, chaotic feelings and my like most at peace, soft, tender, loving feelings, and having a container where they get to create something beautiful together and something honest.
Something beautiful and something honest. You've already begun to, I think, predict where we're going next, which is speaking more to the sacral aspects of creativity. And when I talk about the sacral aspects of creativity, there is questions or ideas of messiness or chaos or passion, but also sensuality. And you spoke to both of those things in your response of the tactile nature and the sensory aspect of working with clay and feeling that run through your fingers, and those gestures and those sensations being so important to you in creating balance. And also you spoke to creating a space for, in your art, the messiest and darkest and most challenging to hold pieces of yourself. And I feel those and see those like originating from like a more sacral place. But yeah, I'm curious for you, what is the most pleasing or pleasurable aspect of that balancing or that creation right now in your life? What lights you up about art and about art as medicine and medicine as art?
I think just the unknown and the magic bodies of like how incredible and how incredible bodies are in like all forms, and just how there is a deep unknown to the way that we move and create, and that unknown is beautiful and not meant to be known fully. I mean, what lights me up the most lately is understanding my own form through dance. That's been the most present, and just there's so much space within myself to explore and love just like every spectrum of like feeling and like soreness and like release and like softness to what I am, and getting to move through that with silliness and with like deep intention has been one of my favorite things. I think it resonates with my New Year's resolution of just appreciating form in myself and others, and taking the time to honor my form and others' forms by being a really tender being for myself and for those that I support. And it brings me so much joy when it feels like it's present and rolling and I'm in it.
And what you're sharing. I'd love to take a moment to invite you to join me in a free 7-day creative cleanse. Every day for 7 days, we'll explore a new chakra and specific exercises and prompts to help us clarify and align that center with our own creative goals. If you're interested, a link can be found in the show notes to sign up. That you have an appreciation for form that extends both into orderliness and into chaos and into meditative, static reflections on form. So you have meditative reflections on form through your ceramics process and through your figure drawing process, and then you have ecstatic meditations on form through dance and movement and expression and embodiment. And I think that's such a rich dialectic to hold. I love form both in its messiness and chaos and in its orderliness and reflective quality.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Took a second to form.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Yeah. I think we would naturally move up to the solar plexus and think about radiance and sunniness and questions around a sense of empowerment as a creative being. And there's something that you and I discussed the other day about the digestion of our experience. And because we live together, questions around food and nourishment have been really present in our conversations and are a real passion point for both of us, I think. And you as a doctor and someone really attuned to the physiological nutrition and also the emotional and psychological aspects of food and eating, and how that also relates to an emotional and spiritual digestion of one's process of life. I feel like you have such an interesting and rich perspective on this energetic center of the body. So I'm curious, if there's anything that feels like it's calling to you in that energy center that you want to share a little bit about balancing or about medicine as art and art as medicine in this center of the body.
Oh, you did such a beautiful job summarizing it. Like, what do I even say? I've been really excited about the idea, and that the way we take in food is like taking in the world. And we take in the world in so many ways, and food is one of them. And food has stories. Each piece has its own story of where it's coming from, and the plants that they come from, and the animals that they come from, and just all the individual beings that create the food, but also together holds so much weight in all the stories that we hold to it, and it allows us to check in with that story in ourselves and our history with the story and process it once again over and over in new forms. And I just think that's really beautiful, and it gives us space to transform our stories and also nourish ourselves, because really food to me can be nourishing or poisonous depending on like how we see it, because our bodies will react very differently if we see it as a threat. If our immune system that's trying to protect us from what's written in our DNA and written in our stories is saying this is poison, does not give us the nutrients and minerals without all the cytokines and the stress. But then also things that are deemed as dangerous or poisonous by the outside opinions can sometimes be really nourishing and really good for our bodies. And the practice of processing our story and also getting to see not just the story of the past, but also getting a moment in the present, check in with our food and check in with ourselves of whether we're prepared and ready to enjoy bringing in the world and bringing in the food and the nutrients that are offered to us.
As someone with that perspective, I'm curious if you have like a recommendation for I mean, as a doctor, no, not the perfect diet, just what are some ways that you've found that help you digest your experience as a human being? And through your study, how do we do this? How do we digest our experience?
Totally, yes. How do we digest food and our stories? And I feel like you have a lot of experience in this. I think is leading with your heart. Like really taking time to check in with my heart and see if it's being pulled towards or away from something. And then if I'm curious enough and have the time to like, if I'm moving towards it, be curious and think why. And when I'm pulling away also, or constricted away, just having that curiosity of why and getting to sit with it, getting to listen to it, and getting to talk to it and potentially change the story if that's in the cards. But I think leading with your heart is a big piece of digestion. Because I don't think we digest unless we want to.
Yeah. You have to have openness or receptivity or permeability through like the throat and the heart in order for something to reach the stomach, and in order for something to pass all the way through the body, there needs to be like receptivity on those levels. So I think, what you're saying is so apt. And
the desire, the choice. And I think that's, there's creation, and then there's digestion, which is the decomposition of things, and like the reverse of creation, to bring things back down to their elements, to create new substance, to like create again. I think there's always balance, and I feel as much as we create and write our stories, we also take the time to deconstruct our stories and realize in the present moment how much is nourishing us and what we want to change.
So are you pointing towards digestion being like the opposing force of creation, or like the balance or the counterweight?
I am.
Yeah.
Would
you be so bold as to say?
I think it's the creation in itself. To take a larger thing and deconstruct it into the raw elements and nutrients to nourish our bodies. Yeah. It's its own form of creation.
Wow. That's really cool. Decomposition or digestion as creation.
Like our liver makes so many of our enzymes. We have to do all this internal creation to break things apart and recreate things from elemental pieces into molecules that we use. There's so much creation going on with our enzymes being made and our acids that are being created in our stomach, and all the creation of stretch and release of all of our internal muscles. There's a lot of creation in that deconstruction process.
The constituent parts that our body breaks down into smaller parts, they are so highly specific and utilized so perfectly. I think that there's some really beautiful parallel between what is happening in our bodies on a physiological level and what's happening within our minds on a mental level, with how it is that we come to a moment where we're ready to create something. I think as a creative being, you're constantly moving through the world and absorbing and meeting new stimuli and collecting little parts and pieces. Of course, you're digesting an experience on a macro level, but then you break down all of those little pieces into very granular, microscopic fragments of data within your mind. And then I think to come to a point where we're ready to create something artistically, we're gathering up some of those very specific granular pieces of our lived experience and putting them back out into the world in a new form. In the same way that our body does.
Reminds me of something we talked about the other day too, around how, for me, that process of taking in the world and taking in, just how beautiful that grass was, or the things that really inspire me. They're there's things that inspire me, and I take them in, and then I see myself in them a little bit. And everything kind of feels like a potential reflection of yourself in some form. And I feel like digestion is interesting in that, where everything breaks down into the same elements and can be reconstructed into a version of you. I don't know if that quite made sense, but there's something about the digestion experiences and food where it's processed down to something that feels like something you can create with, into the elements that allow you your creation and your reflection, given the media and the substance that inspired you.
How does homeopathy fit into that?
Oh yeah, homeopathy. The way homeopathy working was explained to me is that there's a presence and a being, like a plant, and it is, when you take it in its full force, you just eat a leaf of this plant, it would usually make you so angry and start sweating and have a fever and your blood pressure goes up. And so you don't usually have this plant in its full form. But if your personality and the way you're moving through the world just looks like that without this plant, you just are always angry and always overheated, and you're always just yelling and you don't know why it's happening. You take in this super, super diluted version of this plant that's below even avocado's number. So it's just the essence of something. the essence of this presence, and you bring it into your body, and it like reflects to you that same energy, so it can look at itself, and then together they can be released.
Yeah, it's so incredible.
And it's really cool, and it can, it's been around for a very long time.
And this isn't just for angry, it's for any myriad of symptoms, right?
They're like caricatures, like a way of being that has these 10 things that are consistent. And in this kind of caricature, do you fit this caricature? And the caricatures are like, there's, I don't know, like at least 1,000. So yeah, you get to find your little avatar and then match it.
Feels like
I think medicine is often fun. It's a lot of puzzles.
Yeah.
A lot of puzzles.
When your creative practice, really enjoying creating balance. And I don't have that much experience with medicine, but I read this book called The Web That Has No Weaver. Maybe you're familiar. It's about traditional Chinese medicine, and it absolutely blew my mind in the opening chapters because it talked a lot about medicine as an art form. In traditional Chinese medicine, the artist, or rather the doctor, the healer is an artist because they are concerned with and passionate about creating balance in a system and approaching those puzzles with a lot of curiosity and openness and a willingness to flow with what is arising. And I love that about, what you're sharing. Do you think that medicine is a creative act? Or could be approached as a creative act?
I think anything can be a creative act, depending on the way that you see yourself and the way that you are interpreted. I think that's always an interesting and beautiful thing to me about artists, and all the artists that I love. Truly just existing is being an artist. There is creation, of course, but the way that you move and the way that you hold space, we're never in a vacuum. We're always intertwined with everything around us. And so all of our movements and all the ways we listen and speak and move impact our ecosystems. And to be an intentional tender in the ecosystems that we are in a certain way is being an artist to me. So I think you can do anything.
I'm curious.
Maybe not anything. I feel like I eat my words. I'm like, I don't know if you can collect taxes.
With a creative perspective. It's a good challenge. I have a really amazing and beautiful dance teacher. This teacher of mine he says, dance the question. And I really like the idea of, in our creative act, paint the question, dance the question, create the question. And rather than sit in contemplation, play with it. If you have some sort of query around how something might play out, just play it out and see what's there. And when we frame creativity in that way, then science is also an art because it's experimentation, right?
Part of me wants to say that I don't feel like the scientific method always honors the forms, honors the people and the individuals, and I think it's like science as a whole isn't necessarily art, because I don't think it always holds the intention of that curiosity and in that way of honor and like in that way of like creation necessarily. But I think it can. I think you're so right that it can. But I think science is a whole subject. The subjectivity has to be from a heart, from a person. Yeah. But I think they can blend.
It might help to add that that dance teacher was Greek. A very Socratic method, or a very inquiry-based learning mode, in terms of the way that he approaches the question, which I love. I'm wanting to, like, tap in with, like, your connection to herbal medicine and plants, and, like, the creative life force energy of plants, and just if there's anything deeper that you would feel called to share about that. I know you already talked about the blades of grass and the just a wonder and awe that you felt looking at and beholding those plants, but I feel like there's something really deep in your heart with plants, and the other night when we were talking about them, I was like almost moved to tears listening to you talk about your connection to the herbs as allies for healing.
Yeah, it brings me so much joy, and just warms my heart to hear how much you see and hear me. It's like in passing through our week.
Of course.
It's just really easy to fall in love with a plant. It just feels like the easiest thing to do, to just admire the presence of a dandelion, and it's also so easy to never look at them. I guess dandelions, what a story. Just like each good dandelion, the leaves especially, but the roots are just very powerful, beautiful medicine. The roots are so nutritious, and roasted are just very warming to the system. Really good for just like detoxifying the body, and specifically the blood. It has this like yellow bright warmth that it also does bring into the body and like warmly detoxifies. Yeah, it's just very beautiful and very abundant, and brightens the whole world up in the winter, and also has this history of like movement through an ecosystem that like takes over space in ways that like other plants used to be present and have like less numbers now. We have our stories and our histories, and so do plants, and they're often tied to us. Yeah, I guess I just really love them. I don't know. I'm excited to learn more. I feel like that's another fun thing about plants. There's just so many plants, and we're still learning so much about how we interact and how we affect each other, and how powerful of medicine they can be in different doses and different forms. We're still learning, and there's a long history of use and tending, and there's so much more that we can do to tend and support the ecosystems around us and each individual plant by learning their history and learning the way that we have in the past tended, and ways that we can shift and tend in new ways.
One thing that is coming to mind is we as humans have one defined lineage of intelligence and of knowing, and I think it's just so humbling and awe-inspiring to consider the way that's been passed down over millions of years and is so distinct to us. But then to remember that every single species on the planet, or every being, has an equally rich and long history, as you were naming. And every being has its own language and its own way of taking in information, and its own way of processing information and communicating and communing with the space around it. And that it's so sacred to be able to behold a plant in all of its richness and in all of its history and its past and its story. And our conversation the other night naturally led towards plant medicine for that reason, not just in theogenic medicines or psychedelic medicines, but communing with plants and taking a plant into your body allows you to glimpse into the history of that plant, or into the lineage of that being.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you feel it immediately. You see the mutual history and the mutual tending through how you already know how it's going to taste, and like the taste and texture and the way the sugar hits your body and all of a sudden you're so hyped up with a sweet potato. The way it really grounds you and calms you down and brings you down to yourself and where you need to settle with chamomile tea. For me, the history is so rich, and the history becomes present as soon as you bring it in.
When we look at the structure of a plant, how does that help us understand their medicine?
I mean, there's so much you can learn from seeing a plant. I've had teachers describe plants having different qualities based on their overall structure and like their particular leaf structure. What was described to me was that there is something to learn about the distribution of structure in a plant. Some plants have really long, strong roots, and the smallest little flower and petals and stem, and those can often be ones that are very building and rooting to the system. And then there's ones with very tiny roots that are very, and the largest flowers. And those are often thought of as heady, like the more neurologic acting ones. And then ones with a lot of power and energy, and leaves are often maybe more organ-based functionality, like bringing in the light, making it into energy, like metabolic. I don't think that's a strict thing, but something that was a soft structure to think around plants about. And then also the structure of the leaves itself. Some are sharp and jagged, and those often are more the fiery, warmer ones. The ones that are more square are often more earthy. And the ones that are shaped like in, then out, then back in, are like airy. I don't think it's a strict thing, but I think it's something to get a sense. That's what Fig has to say about that. And then the color of the petals, blue, sometimes the idea is like can be more cooling, and like oranges and yellows more like brightening and stimulating maybe. Do not want to say that's an absolute, but I think I do see a pattern of that often. That isn't 100%, but I think it's a beautiful way to recognize and resonate with plants as like a fun tool to try when starting to like have more communication and care and awareness around connecting with new plants that you don't know.
I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about how vibration creates form. Have you ever seen those Chladni plates or the cymatics before? So cymatic theory or cymatic studies are all about how vibration turns into form. I guess I think about the way that exists on a plant level. There is a vibrational frequency that every plant species has that informs and is informed by the form of the plant. And when we ingest that plant, we are communing with that vibrational frequency that the plant was created on and co-created with. And it changes our vibrational frequency in turn.
There's this cool thing where I forget what the like lineage of medicine even was that did this, but they steamed different plants and then it would create an image above the plant, and with the same plant it would keep creating the same image. And so it was energetic print of the plant. I don't know how accurate it was, but that just blew my mind, and I would love to dig into that more and see if that was consistent.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
I definitely need to do more research around it, but having my teacher be like, yep, this is the energetic footprint of the plant once you consistently steamed this plant in different times.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
I'm sure. I want to see them. I wonder where I can see those and what they're called.
I will look them up. Send them your way.
Sounds really right up my alley.
But yeah, I really love the idea of energy and matter and that space in between. That is more of a gradient that I feel like we've talked about a little bit before. Yeah, very cool. I love those things.
I think we've already started to move our way up through the heart. I feel like we've been talking about the things that you love and that you base your creative and healing exploration on, like this communication with and reverence for plants and this love for their teaching and their wisdom and their healing. And that's all felt very verdant and green and of the heart. Now, really all we have left is throat on up, and curious if there's anything that you hope to express or advocate for through your work in this world.
I see how, and stepped into this role of being a doctor, is a huge amount of power and privilege in the world. And I have always felt very determined to advocate for all forms of the oppressed. Truly no one is free until we are all free. And now I have more power and privilege to do so. I think I've been thinking about that quite a bit this week, of what is advocacy in this new place that I'm in. What does deconstructing the patriarchy and being anti-racist and deconstructing, just capitalist structures mean within this new role? What is my capacity and desire in that? And that is something that is still being formed, I think. But I think today, in this current political ecosystem, there is a lot of people in fear and a lot of people that are being hunted right now. I think being a doctor, being a primary caregiver, being someone who is a main support system to your body and your mind, living in a world that can be very harsh and very hurtful, and what I can do in the role of primary care to advocate for each of my patients and myself, to bolster up and empower and bring joy to being trans and queer like I am, and also to being the beautiful people that I get to work with. I guess just helping people find that balance and that joy and that empowerment in themselves is the main goal that I have, on top of advocating in all the ways that I can with the loud voice that I have as a doctor now.
It's such a beautiful intention and such a beautiful vision. And I'm so glad I got to ask you that question, because I don't think I totally knew. It's so sweet to learn that. Just the charge there. The passion and the drive. Touched it a little bit earlier today when I asked you about working with the patient that you were with today, and just to get a little bit more perspective on your why is so rich. And I know that being guided by that heart of service in your exploration, as both as a creative person and as a doctor and as a creatively seeing healer, and who gets the honor of coming to you for care, because I think you have that creative perspective when coming into contact with another being, of how can I know you and how can I serve you? It's so beautiful.
Thank you. That's so kind.
Yeah. Okay, we did already really talk about your vision. What is like the big project on your horizon that is, that like twinkles and that like when you think about it, you're like, oh, I can't wait to create that someday. Maybe you can come back and listen to this in several years and be like, I did it. Or maybe it can serve as a reminder to go do it.
The first word that came to mind is family. Family as in chosen family, bringing in people that we have like a net of like care and support and presence. I feel like becoming a doctor and getting to be a caretaker in this world is the one that I've been working towards for a long time. But when you said, what's the next big project, I was like, I think it's been a long goal, and it's continuing to be a really beautiful, enjoyable goal to get to. A caretaker.
Beautiful. Just as we wrap up, I think the only question that I really have left is, I don't know, just crown and spirit and a curiosity around what compels you to do all of this. What do you devote this experience of creative caregiving and generative caregiving and tending to not only your experience but the experience of other beings and plants and folks under your care? What gives you the audacity?
Yeah, who do I serve?
Yeah.
What gives me the audacity? I was born with it. I guess it's just that like magic that flows through everything that has given me the honor to witness it and be part of magic.
Yeah.
Got so many names, but I don't really have a clear name for it.
That's okay. Yeah.
It just makes me smile when I think about it.
It's a feeling.
Unknown.
Yeah.
It's like a little nudge of the way everything around me settles in a certain way when I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that with 1,000 names and 1,000 faces. Yeah. And much more. But yeah, the place that gives us the energy and the power and we just send it right back. And yeah, I think to be a creative being is to be in continuous cyclical dialogue with that vast, mysterious unknown. And every time it sends something to you, you receive it, have a fit, observe it, and send it back. Yeah. I think that
Mary Oliver is such a teacher, and such a mentor to me, and I think just a countless amount of people.
Yes. I think that there's a poem that's something close to the rules for life are to live it, be astonished, and then tell about it. And I'm thinking about that as we finish our conversation. Simply witness it in yourself and in your life, and then tell about the wonder. And that really brings me back to the very beginning of our conversation of you. Like observing those blades of grass, like that is something so seemingly mundane. But what changed it all is your astonishment and your willingness to share. Thank you so much for sitting in the dark with me on a Sunday night and telling me a little bit more about what it's like to be you and your experience as a creative being.
Thank you so much for having me and wanting to talk.
Oh my gosh, my joy. Thank you for journeying with me into the fertile void on the Vision Seed podcast. As we emerge from this space, it's my hope that the whisper of inspiration may take root and aid you in your creative path. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share it, leave a review, and follow along with us on social media. Until next time, keep dancing in the dark and cultivating the seeds of your creative vision. Bye-bye.